Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known to the world as El Mencho. Who was he? Now we're going to talk about one of the biggest developments in the ongoing Mexican drug war in years. Mexican security forces have killed El Mencho, right? The founder and the longtime leader of Jalisco New Generation Cartel, known as CJNG, widely considered one of the most powerful and violent criminal organizations, not just in Mexico, but in the Western Hemisphere. Now, El Mencho was he was more than a cartel boss, right? For decades, he was among the most wanted men by both Mexican and the U.S. authorities, with a bounty reaching into the millions and criminal networks that spanned multiple continents. Now, we're going to talk about what happened, how it happened, and what are the consequences that might be locally, regionally, and internationally. Now, Mr. Cervantes, known to the world as El Mencho, was the head of the CJNG, a cartel that grew from regional power into a global distribution networks for cocaine, fentanyl, methamphetamine, and other illegal substances. He was born in Michoacan, I must have butchered that name, but El Mencho rose from the modest, beginning to build a sprawling empire that has extended across Mexico and into the United States. His cartel was known not just for drug trafficking, but extortion, fuel theft, and ruthless violence, often deploying military-style tactics against rivals and authorities alike. For years, the CJNG they were seen as the main competitors to other cartels, including the Sinaloa cartel, in control of major trafficking routes. It was also responsible for dozens attacks on law enforcement and government officials. Now, on the 22nd of February, Mexican special forces, backed by what we're seeing intelligence support by the United States, raided a hideout in Tapalapa, Jalisco, where El Mencho was believed to be hiding. Now, the raid began before dawn. Security forces encircled the compound and engaged cartel gunmen in intense firefights that lasted hours. Multiple cartels operatives were killed as soldiers advanced. At one point, cartel fighters even used rocket-propelled weapons to resist the assault. This is reported in CBS News and many other sources. Now, after a fierce fighting, El Mencho was found wounded alongside bodyguards. He was airlifted for medical care but died from his injuries in transit to Mexico City, according to official military statements. Now, this was a carefully planned out, you can say, operations, one of the largest collaborations between Mexican security forces and the U.S. agencies in the ongoing drug war. And almost immediately after the announcement of El Mencho's death, we know there was violent reprisals erupted across multiple states as CJNG operative and affiliates reacted. Roads were blocked with burning vehicles and buses. Vehicles and buildings were set on fire. Armed groups launched coordinated attacks on infrastructures and law enforcement posts. In response to the wave of chaos, thousands of security troops were deployed across affected regions to quell the unrest and prevent further escalations. At least what we've been told is that 25 members of the Mexican National Guards were killed in the retaliatory attack, according to official statements. A stark number to show costly and complex these operations could be. And now the violence was so significant that travel advisories were issued with authorities warning visitors and residents in key cities like Guadalajara and Puerto Rico Vallarta to stay indoors and avoid unnecessary travel while security operations continued. Many of the U.S. tourists were being told to not leave their hospital or their hotel stays whatsoever. For whatever reason, they were going to be the first ones to be attacked. Now, what comes next? Killing a cartel boss doesn't automatically dismantle the cartel, and experts are already watching how CJNG they're going to reorganize itself. Unlike older cartel structures that relied heavily on single leaders, CJNG has been described as more, decentralized criminal franchise with multiple regional commanders controlling different territories and revenue streams. Now, with El Mencho dead and his son El Menchito already imprisoned in the US, the cartel faces a leadership vacuum, right? Analysts identify several potential successors among the top lieutenants and regional bosses, each with their own following and networks. Now, this could lead to internal power struggles, splintering into rival fractions, or the rise of a new leader who reasserts control. In many scenarios, the CJNG will not simply disappear overnight. That's just not going to happen, right? That is a critical context that we need to understand and moving forward. Now, what happened in Jalisco doesn't stay in Jalisco, right? It reverberates across Mexico, the wider region, and especially towards the US-Mexico border. Experts warning that violence can spill into border states, affecting migration flow and security dynamics. Power struggles can lead to surge in drug production, trafficking, and violent turf wars. Other cartels, including the CJNG's rivals, may try to expand into territories once that's been tightly controlled by Elemento's factions. So this dynamic interplay influences everything from the public safety to U.S. domestic policy discussions on border security, which is something that we've been dealing for years. I feel like the U.S. is going to use this as like, oh, we have to get more, border control and more damage to individuals that are trying to make it to the USA. So in cities like Guadalajara, Puerto Vallarta and Tijuana, reactions are varying. So in some areas, residents watched in fears as roadblocks and fires have erupted. In others, there is a relief that El Mencho, a figure who symbolized decades of cartel violence, is no longer alive. Now, on social media, discussions have shown mixed hope, anxiety, and debate on whether the operation will reduce crime or spark a new cycle of violence. Now, this is a crucial context how beyond official statements, the perspective of communities affected by cartel violence provides a human dimensions to the story. Now the global reactions and the policy implications, international eyes are also watching. The U.S. official hailed the operation as a blow against transnational organized crime, right? Analysts are emphasizing that cartel leadership decapitation doesn't always end violence. It never really ends violence. It can redistribute power and escalate the conflict. Critics argue that deeper structural change in law enforcement, economic development, and community resilience are needed for lasting peace. Now, these are the questions you can raise, to yourself. Does killing a cartel boss, actually reduce crime, or does it fragment the criminal networks? What responsibilities do government have to protect civilians after such operations? Stay informed, stay safe. I leave you all in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi amanillah.